A software engineer should never be forced to grant access to a backdoor under any circumstance. The government is trying to use a criminal investigation to justify getting into U.S. citizens' phones ever since encryption was invented. The first major case that brought this issue to the public eye was after the 2015 shooting, when a terrorist iPhone was recovered and unable to be unlocked. So the government asked Apple to create a backdoor for them so they could get into the phone. The issue with what they were asking for was a backdoor to get into any phone that was made before the iPhone 7s. So once the software was created and shelled out, anyone could use the exploit to get into any of the phones that were made before iPhone 7s. And it was found to be very easy to do so. It sounds pretty okay on paper now since we've moved on past the iPhone 7s, but so that's bad for the government though. The government wants to get into the newer phones since they keep recovering them after shootings and stuff. So once again, they ask for another backdoor. This game of can't open the phone, we need a backdoor, please give it to me, has continued to present day with the most recent shooting, with the most recent case of this being after a shooting of a naval base here in Florida where 2 iPhones were recovered. The biggest issue with creating a backdoor is that it makes hacking things so much easier for anyone to do. In 2010, it was discovered that the Cisco IP network that was used for law enforcement interception was easily hackable within a couple minutes. There's several different exploits they could use just to get in and start stealing data. It was also found in 2012 that the U.S. Department of Defense's phone switches were vulnerable to the same attacks that the Cisco one was. So, and the reason why they had those issues was because of the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, which granted a lot of weird backdoors and stuff like that. For a non-government related example, Volkswagen made a backdoor key, little key fob, that was able to unlock 100 million cars. And a similar exploit that they also made was one that could start the car. So anyone who was able to be tech savvy enough to emulate the key was able to get into millions of cars all over everywhere, the world. Despite all these issues with backdoors, the U.S. government passed the Cloud Act, which allowed for the extradition of data from other countries to our country for use in criminal investigations. The government invoked this power in 2010 to get data off of Google servers to help with an investigation to see which Chinese people in the U.S. were actually secret agents for the Chinese government. This data got intercepted before it got to the U.S. and by Chinese hackers, and they were able to get their agents out of here. So even when they try to make it work, it doesn't work very well. My second point is that the government, even when the government does a job and gets all the data securely onto our servers and stuff like that, it's not able to keep that out of bad actors within the government itself. So it was found in a report that Denver police would use the state and federal databases to look up information for friends or just to help themselves in their dating life. One female officer's driver's license was looked up over 400 times by other officers. And all the people, they eventually got found out, and all these people weren't even charged criminally. They were just given a slap on the wrist and said, don't do it again. Which is, it's a huge violation of privacy, so it doesn't make, a whole lot of sense. A report showed that, international governments have been using personal data to blackmail officials or citizens. The Italian military used agents within a telecommunications company to get years of blackmail on wealthy people and government officials. This was for a period of 5 years. They just collected data on these people. A similar case in Greece. A company slowly turned switches into wiretaps so they could use to exploit people. And then in India, police officers were able to get call records from 93 million people's phones without the police chief even knowing. Then for more local stuff, the U.S., the NSA has been shown to be actively attempting to weaken security through paying companies to use a flawed encryption algorithm that they designed themselves. An example of this was in 2013 when NSA paid RSA, a big security company, $10 million to use the dual ECDRBG algorithm, which was known to have an easily accessible backdoor that the NSA created on purpose. People told them, hey, there's an issue with your algorithm, fix it, and then they were like, whatever. And then, despite all these bad actors and governments and stuff like that not being able to get the data securely, um, people still have a right to privacy in most countries. So the fourth here in the U.S., the Fourth Amendment gives the right to people to keep the backdoor. It gives the right to privacy. So the Fourth Amendment gives him the right to keep the backdoor secret to anyone he deems unfit of the information, and if that includes the government, then it's still his right, thanks to Amendment 9 and 10, which say that any rights, not given to the person explicitly are still theirs, that kind of thing. That may only explicitly be in the U.S. However, countries all over the world have slowly implemented privacy laws. It went from 20 countries doing it to over 100 now doing privacy laws. Just names some of the major ones. You had Canada, China, Australia, the European Union, India, the Philippines, Brazil, Argentina. In Canada, there's PIPEDA. It mandates companies inform the user what data is being harvested and what it's going to be used for. It also requires consent. In the EU, GDPR is known to use the strictest guideline. It also requires consent on behalf of the user and to tell them what their data is going to be used for. In South Africa, there is the POPI or POPIA. That again requires consent and holds entities accountable for informing the users what the data is going to be used for. I think Argentina has like a 2% fine, which is higher than even the GDPR, which is only like a couple percent of like a company's income if they breach the privacy agreement. But as you can see, there's a reoccurring theme that people kind of need to get informed consent. So that's a big thing. In conclusion, a software developer should not, under any circumstances, be forced to grant access to a backdoor they created. The U.S. government will continue to try to destroy one's right to privacy through any means necessary. This is exemplified by the constant begging for backdoors from Apple and the blatant crippling of security by the NSA. Many government officials all over the world behave as bad actors that rather use the data for personal reasons than to help its citizens. This is shown by the several cases of blackmail harvesting by various different government agencies. Finally, it is agreed upon by most governments that privacy is a human right. You need informed consent. You need to tell them what the data is being used for. So, bottom line, the software developer has the right to privacy, and if they don't want to give out the code, then it's their right not to do so. So, thank you all for coming to the debate. Bye-bye.